Ever wondered who actually buys $26 trillion of U.S. debt every year? You'd think it's an open market. It isn't. Only 24 banks can bid. That's 80,000 of new debt per American every year. You're a GS-12 auction desk operator. Your terminal? TAAPS. And at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, you open the window. By the end of this video, you'll know the one mechanism, the primary dealer obligation. That means a Treasury auction can never actually fail. But first, who actually runs the auction, and why does it sit in West Virginia? So picture this, Parkersburg, West Virginia, Tuesday morning. You walk in at 7:30. The terminal boots before you do. Here's the thing, the debt market doesn't break by accident. Treasury redesigned it in April, and after Salomon Brothers tried to corner one. One firm submitted false customer bids and tried to absorb the entire 2-year note issue. The fix? Single-price Dutch auctions. That's still the system you operate today. So how big is the system? Treasury sold $26 trillion last fiscal year. Bills, notes, bonds, everything stacked. $26 trillion. Divided across 326 million Americans? That's roughly 80,000 of new debt per person per year. So here's the question. How does Treasury sell that much paper every single week and never miss? Now here's the trick. Look at the list of who can bid. There are only 24 firms in the whole world. You read the names, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. The list goes on, but the count doesn't. But that's not the load-bearing part. Look, the load-bearing part is in one line of the contract. They aren't just allowed to bid, they're contractually required to. Every auction, no exceptions. So you only have one job here. Open the window, take their tenders, let the algorithm do the rest. That's it. 3 steps. Open, receive, cut off. Why does that matter? Because if a dealer skips, FRBNY can revoke its status. And primary dealer is the most valuable seat on the street. No seat, no FRBNY trading relationship. No FRBNY trading relationship, no front row look at Federal Reserve open market operations. The whole franchise breaks. So Treasury announces a fresh batch of debt. The dealers can't say no. The auction never goes empty. Here's where it gets weird. The public can technically bid. Treasury Direct runs in the same window, but it's a rounding error. On a typical 13-week bill auction, you're selling around $90 billion. Treasury Direct? Maybe 1%. The other 99 rides on the dealers. So you can buy a Treasury bill from your home computer. That doesn't make this an open market. The price gets set upstream. So the conventional read says debt is bought in an open market. The hidden read, 24 firms set the price. The public picks it up. Closed cartel inside an open market. One contract obligation, 24 firms, one bid window. That's the architecture. But here's the part that throws people. How does the price actually get set inside 90 minutes? That's where the algorithm shows up. You glance at the clock, 9:58, 2 minutes. You take a breath. Now 1 moment is worth holding before the window opens. Salomon Brothers in 91, multiple price auction. The trading desk submitted false customer tenders and took 94% of a single 2-year note issue. The fix was structural, moved from multiple price to single price Dutch. Everyone wins at the same yield, so cornering becomes pointless. So the system you operate today exists because one firm tried to break the old one. Single price isn't just an algorithm, it's a memory. 10 o'clock. You hit enter. The window opens. Here's the catch. You don't see who's bidding in real time. The TAAPS feed only shows aggregate volume. Names get masked. Look, every dealer can see the same totals you can. Aggregate bids, aggregate volume, ticking clock. Nobody knows who's holding back. Now every dealer's doing the same math. Bid too low on yield, miss the issue. Bid too high, leave money on the table. So what does the algorithm do? It ranks bids by yield, lowest first, and allocates supply until the issue's gone. The last accepted bid sets the line. That's the stop out. And here's the twist. Every winning bidder pays it, not their own bid. That's not a guess. That's the rule under 31 CFR Part 356, the Uniform Offering Circular. Single price every time. But how do you know if a real auction is healthy or sick? So that's where the bid to cover comes in. Take total tenders received, divide by total awarded. If you got 200 billion in bids on a 100 billion issue, the bid to cover is 2.0. Healthy auctions usually clear 2.5 to 3. If you ever see 1.8, the wires will run a story by lunchtime. 11:26, 4 minutes to close. Now the last wave hits. Most dealers wait until the final minute. They don't want to show their hand. You watch the volume jump from 50 billion to over 200, same as every Tuesday. 11:30, window closes. So now the algorithm runs. It sorts, it ranks, it allocates. 90 seconds, that's all it takes. 11:32, the screen flips. You read the stop out, 4.18, bid to cover 2.61, within normal. So what's the catch then? Why does any of this matter to the person buying a Treasury bill on a phone app? Because the stop out becomes the secondary market price. The Bloomberg quote on your phone, that's downstream of the bid you can't make. And here's the part nobody mentions. The cutoff yield anchors everything else. Money markets, mortgage rates, corporate spreads, they all reference it. Now there's one document that schedules every one of these. The Treasury Quarterly Refunding Statement. Every auction date for the next 3 months, every issue size, every tenor. The Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee meets quarterly. They recommend the sizes. Treasury accepts most of them. So the dealers help set the size of the issue they're then obligated to absorb. Read that again. Now the back end. The auction's over, but the cash hasn't moved yet. Here's the thing. Settlement is T+1. One business day after the auction, the dealer's accounts at FRBNY get debited. Treasury gets the cash. You watch the award file get released. It's a single batch transmission to all 24 primary dealers at once. Each dealer's screen now shows its slice. JP Morgan got 14%, Citi got 11%, Goldman 9%, down the line. Now the dealers have a day to figure out who they're flipping it to. Money market funds, pension funds, foreign central banks. So who ends up holding it? Foreign central banks, about 30%. Japan, China, the UK, top 3. But none of those buyers can bid directly. They have to go through one of the 24. Now here's the kicker. That choke point isn't an accident. It's contractual. So a Japanese pension wanting U.S. paper goes through Nomura. Nomura bids indirect. The auction allocates to Nomura. Nomura passes it on. The TAAPS report shows the split. Indirect bidders took 65% of today's awards. Direct took 20%. Dealer own account, 15%. Indirect at 65%. That's the foreign money. Wednesday morning, TPO 1. 11 a.m. Eastern, the next day, FRBNY debits each dealer's reserve account by its allocated amount. Treasury's general account gets credited the same minute. 90 billion in cash, booked. So now Treasury can spend it. Social Security, Medicare, Pentagon, interest on the existing debt. Around 2/3 of the cash from a fresh 13-week bill is going to pay off bills coming due that same week. Refunding, basically. That's why the gross number gets so big. Most of it isn't new spending. It's old debt rolling over into new debt. So the auction isn't just selling new debt. It's keeping the old debt alive. Every Tuesday, every week. And the dealers can't refuse. So the cycle doesn't break. Not because Treasury's clever, but because the contract on their desk says it can't. You close the FY24 binder. Auction one of 240 this year. 240 windows a year. 26 trillion in paper, 24 desks, one mechanism. So here's what you actually saw today. Not a market, a scheduled process. 24 firms with a contract. One algorithm that runs in 90 seconds, one settlement window the next morning. And it doesn't break. Not because the math is clever, but because the obligation isn't optional. So when you hear the words Treasury auction tail on the news, you'll know what just happened. The stop-out yield came in above the pre-auction market. It means the dealers needed a discount to absorb the issue. It doesn't mean the auction failed. Under the obligation rule, it can't. And when you hear bid to cover 1.8 on a wire, that's an auction landing soft. Headline material, but the cash still moved on Wednesday morning. The note-taker writes one line in his small brown notebook, then sets the pen down. The mechanism doesn't change. It just stays invisible. Subscribe if you want the next one. There's a lot more hidden in plain sight, sitting in forms nobody reads. The systems don't hide because they're complicated. They hide because nobody's looking at the forms. Same desk, Tuesday again.